I'll be speaking on, and thank you to everyone that availed themselves for this talk. I'll be speaking about digitizing data for conservation. Sorry, I'm having some difficulties here. Okay, cool. So as earlier said, I'm a data analyst at Eden Creation Care Initiative, which is a conservation NGO, a Christian conservation NGO based in Plateau State. So our project with GBIF is coordinated by Arusha, Kenya, and it's supported by Arusha International. And we have 4 main projects which are based in Kenya, Uganda, Ghana, and Nigeria. And I want to use this opportunity to thank all our partners for their support, especially our home partner here, collaborator, the April Leventis Ornithological Research Institute, for their support. This project is coordinated by this 11 organizations. So we talk about data, and we say data is just, in my opinion, just information. And if we have information, then it is a wise thing to use the information to influence our decision making. But for people to be able to get this information, I mean, people need to get this information to be able to use information to influence their decision. That means they need to be somewhere that they could go and access this information to use the information. And that's where GBIF comes in. GBIF is an international network and research infrastructure that is funded by the world's government, and it's aimed at providing anyone, anywhere, open access data about all kinds of life on Earth. It is free and it is accessible on the GBIF website, which is gbif.org. And you can do a lot of things with the data available on the website. And by virtue of our project in these 4 countries, we've been able to add a little bit, you could call it a drop in the ocean of data within this large network of data set about biodiversity on the GBIF platform. So for today, I'll be talking about just giving you an overview of the projects we are involved in, and I will now go specifically to a particular site we are working on in Nigeria. So our project is coordinated by Arusha, Kenya, and we have 4 different project sites in Ghana, Nigeria, Uganda, and Kenya. And I'll be talking specifically about our Nigerian project. But the broad aim of the project is to enlighten people and then bring data to life, really. So far, for our particular project in Nigeria, we've been able to publish 6 data sets with about 3,166 records. And most of our data sets have been published just around the area bordering the Obudu Plateau to some forest zones in Taraba State, Southeast Taraba State. And you can actually scan this barcode to take a look of the project we are doing, and you can get more information on it. I'll be talking now about the particular forest sites that we are now developing other projects based on our findings on this GBIF project and other project that's going on at Eden. And the place is called Anwase. It is a lowland forest just bordering the Obudu Plateau and the mountain forest of Cameroon. So it is like a transition zone between these forest sites and the Guinea Savannah region of Nigeria. It is in southeast Benue State, and is occupied by the Tea people. And when you go to this area, you have this size of farmlands like this rice farm, and also you have the famous chief kind of settlement with these kinds of pots. So the threat to biodiversity in this region is mostly farming. So historically, the people were known to practice what they called shifting cultivation, where people go to the forest, they clear a very big patch of forest, and then they farm for a year, they move to another patch and do the same. So it's like I just clear like 2 hectares of land, for example. I farm for 1 year, and then I leave it. And I don't really care about whether the forest will regenerate. So a tree that's been growing for 50 years just get cut down just to farm for 1 year. And also there's also the issues of logging, because this area has a lot of large trees because of the forest and the rain and wetness. Another challenge they have there is forest fire, which until recently we were told through some of the engagement we had with the people that the forest, some of the fires can be attributed to this kind of activity where children go to forests to hunt rats. So they just set the whole forest ablaze just to get this meat. Yeah. So another threat they have there. So historically, that axis used to have a lot of large mammals, like you can see the skull of the buffalo, and we had stories of elephants existing there before. And even when we went there earlier this year, we saw chimpanzees that were killed and brought to the market as bushmeat. So that axis used to have a lot of species, but now it is going through a lot of threats, and we hope that the work we are doing here through data can bring some enlightenment to the people and also help protect this biodiversity. So what is the process? So of digitizing data really. So first of all, you need to collect this data somehow. And then there are a lot of formats that this data can be stored. And it could be stored in like this paper format, as you can see. And then one of our data set, for example, was stored on a PDF file. So the data was collected between 1967 and 1996. I've not seen any records of birds that were documented like that since I started working with birds 2 years ago. So I know there are others, and we would like to use this opportunity to tell those listening, if you have such data sets, you could reach out to us and we will see if we could be able to publish, because for our Nigerian landscape, we don't really have data dating back from the 1870s of the Geological Research Institute, Nigerian Bird Atlas project. So it would be nice if we could fit out these data sets and publish them so that it would be accessible to other people. So digitizing the data simply means just making the data into a format that can be readable by a computer. So we take these notebooks, PDF files, and we convert the data into Excel sheets and stuff. And then we upload these files to the GB database. And then we have to analyze the data, and the analysis can come through various forms, as I'll be explaining later on. And finally, there's no point really for you to collect data, digitize, analyze, and then not use that data. And the whole thing is just pointless. So then we need to use the data for something, at least to inform some kind of decision or how we live with biodiversity around us. And now I just want to give a brief history about how the project started and how the data was collected initially. So 12 years ago, these 3 people traveled down to Anwase, which I said is in the northeastern part of the country, and the sighted a very special bird, which is called a paradise flycatcher. It didn't look like some of the common paradise flycatcher that we know in Nigeria, which is the African paradise flycatcher and the involved-vented paradise flycatcher, Capsicum preventer. And in 2021, a photographer who is, a nature photographer who is actually a physicist, actually came across a species, the same kind of paradise flycatcher that was described by these people 12 years ago. He came across this individual, which he took a photograph of in 2021. You can actually see the photo of this bird in my background. So it was a very exciting time. So after that year, when they went there, then there was now a project at Eden where we go to that axis to try to catch as many as possible of this species and also establish a conservation program in that area. So we then needed to digitize the data, at least to put it out there for people to access. So how we do this is just to enter this data into Excel files, and we enter the year, we enter the location, the GPS coordinates, we enter the names, and so on and so forth. A lot of information just to help whoever is going to be using this data to make sense out of the data. But numbers and scientific names don't really mean anything. So then for us to use this data, we need to find a way to make sense out of it, which is basically what analysis is, to make sense out of the information we have in the numbers and the names and hits. So then what we thought about was, for us to for the people at Anwase to make sense of the data we've collected, we thought about two things. One is ecosystem services. So what ecosystem services are performed by the birds on our data set? And then something like the cattle egret, for example, perform a lot of services, which I will talk about later. And then we thought about how rare some of the species that are on the data set are. And the paradise flycatcher, which we call the anomalous paradise flycatcher, also comes to mind. So we are using these two main approaches to be able to connect with these people to detect some biodiversity conservation change in the area. So then we needed to use this data. We needed to take this information to the people. After getting this, and then using the data, we can use biodiversity data for a lot of things, including education, for research, for tourism, for fundraising, for making reports, and also for planning and development decisions. But for our projects, I'll be focusing on the education aspect of what we're using the data for the research, and also for planning and development decisions. For education, mostly what we are doing there is to reach out to key groups in the community. We sit down, we discuss about what they are going through, what they know about biodiversity, how we could help them see biodiversity in a different light, and then address some of their misconceptions, and also engage with them at all levels. So we go out in the community, we meet, for example, this group are the youths, and we talk about biodiversity. And for example, one of the concerns somebody raised was the egrets come to their rice farm to eat their rice. But from our knowledge of the egret is not a granivorous bird. It doesn't eat grains. The egret feeds on insects. So, but then they already had this information that the egrets eat their rice. So they see an egret, they get catapult and they kill it. But then we went and we got this information, so we try our best in most of these cases to try to enlighten them by talking and discussing and seeing what they see, and then try to help them see it in another light. So for the research, so far the data set we published, I said we published about 6 data sets, and people around the world have started using the data sets, at least some of them. And so far we've gotten 10 citations from the 6 data sets that have been published. So 10 peer-reviewed papers have used the data set. That means they are somehow affecting change in the conservation of birds. At least we hope so. Another aspect of research we are working on right now is, so as I described earlier, the paradise flycatcher that was seen and described 30 years ago and was photographed by Ako Agbebe, which I showed earlier, and it's on my background slide picture. It's far different from the 2 known species that is known to the area. And these particular individuals have not been seen anywhere else. So this photograph was taken in Benue, and also our research site is also in Benue, in Southeast Benue. So if something is going on, we are thinking now that there's probably hybridization, or maybe they are just subspecies, or something is really going on in that area, that we get these very anomalous species, like the one on the right, or on the left, and also this one on the right. It's also not completely looking at like the other Capsicum viviventa that are in that agreement. So the team at Eden is trying to collect as many individuals and blood samples from as many individuals to be able to classify these species based on phylogeny in the area. So for planning and decision making, we are establishing a sustainable. So the main source of livelihood for these 2 people, and I forgot to say, the place is very remote, they don't have network and stuff like that. So the main source of livelihood for them is farming. So we thought of channeling our effort towards helping them farm better in a sustainable way. So for example, we want to help them improve their value chain. So I don't know if we all know this plant. This is called African mango, and we know it as ogbono. It's a very high value crop. It grows there. It's a natural forest plant there, but the people don't really invest in it. So when I bought a mudu of this stuff, it was 1,200. But I came to Jos and I heard that it is sold for 9,000 naira. So, but these people also shy away from processing the ogbono seed, because they say it takes a lot of time to process it, to cut and dry and stuff like that. So we're also working to see if we can mechanize the processing of some of their products, and also help them access markets that will in prices that are worth the labor they put into producing the goods. So, and finally, we are also trying to use the data we have collected of birds and forest patches that we've mapped to also set up community forests, and hopefully that would at least help conserve some of the species that are in the area. So that's that for our annual project. So I will just briefly talk about how you could access some of the data we published on the GB database. So far, the process is easy. You just need to visit gb.org. You create a login. Once you get your login, then you can use the search function to generate reports, and you can also do a lot of things on the GB database. You can connect the GB database to other databases. You can connect using QGIS, R, and so on and so forth to do a lot of analysis using the data on the database. And then you can also download and export files or records from the database. But one of the things that makes GB very interesting is open access is free. And then if you publish your data set on the platform, whoever is using the data set will also cite you. So each data set has a GUI like research publication, and then whoever is using that data set will also cite you. So it brings transparency to the whole process. Really. So I would like to thank all the team members for their hard work on this project, and specifically the field assistants. They've been immense, helping us a lot, and all the research people and people from Eden, people from Aplori, especially Bello. Really appreciate your support and help. That's it. Thank you. You could scan this barcode to go to our project page to get more information in case you need any such information. And if you have any specific stuff you want to discuss, you can reach out to me through my email. And if you are able to collaborate on publishing some data sets, you can also reach out to me and we work out how to go about it. Thank you very much. And thank you for having the patience to stay with me.